and then I was called again back to that same school for my A levels. Thereafter, I passed, and I was called to go to the University of Nairobi to do the degree in law. Prior to that, I did a stint as an untrained teacher in Buruburu High School under KD Handa schools those days. After graduation, I went to the Kenya School of Law, and after admission to the bar, I started my legal practice in Nairobi. I started a law firm called Migos Ogamba and Company, and thereafter, in 1996, I took a break. I went to the University of London, where I had studied a diploma in the advanced legal studies. I got a diploma from there. Since that time, I've been practicing law, spanning almost 31 years as a private practitioner. I have represented various clients, both individual clients and corporate clients. I have also had a stint in politics. In 2007, I ran for Parliament for Kitutu Church North, and 2017, and also in 2022, I ran for the Deputy Governor, Kisii County. In the year 2023, Honorable Speaker, I was appointed to chair the Kengen board, where I've had the opportunity to lead the board and the leadership team in that organization. I provided leadership since that time until I'm still a chair there. So I know that in leadership, you learn to lead organizations. You also have the opportunity to study in that organization. Honorable Speaker, in terms of my suitability to this position, I have had an experience, a large experience, in handling complicated matters in court. I have also had the opportunity to understand what the education docket entails. Honorable Speaker, our Constitution provides under Article 43, under Article 53, and also under Article 55 for provision of education to the children of this country. And the Ministry of Education, under the Basic Act, the Basic Education Act, and also the TVET Act, plus the Universities Act, expands that mandate so that the provisions therein are espoused and has to be undertaken by the Ministry of Education. The role of us here, Honorable Speaker, is to ensure that those provisions, that mandate, is undertaken by offering leadership in policy and putting the team together so that they achieve the goals in that particular act.
That will do. I will invite the Deputy Speaker to be the first to ask you a question. And we expect, when questions are put, to receive concise and precise answers to those questions.
Mr. Ogamba, as you're well aware, many Kenyans have put in a lot of complaints relating to the competency-based curriculum, complaining about the lack of facilities, training of the teachers or sufficient teachers. If you are confirmed, what would you change? What is your analysis of the situation, and how would you handle it if you are appointed to this position?
Thank you, Madam Deputy, for that question. I have listened to Kenyans on the issue of the CBC. The competency, it's a competency-based curriculum that came about in order to replace the 844 system that was there before. The issues that I have identified as a challenge in the Act and as a challenge in the program are three in number. There is a problem of lack of teachers. There is also a problem of the engagement of the parents in that program. There's also the challenge of the infrastructure that is supposed to be available to ensure that the CBC is done properly. In my view, the CBC, the competency-based curriculum, is a good program that came to ensure that the children who are learning get the benefit from their talents. So therefore, what would be done is to ensure that the parents understand what it's required for them to be able to assist the children when they are undertaking this CBC.
Naisula.
Thank you, Chairman. To the nominee, I just want to understand from you what is your take on governments continuing good policies that exist. And why I ask that question is that our cabinet secretaries continuing with the good policies that they find there. In the education sector, we have found and we have seen in the past, every time a cabinet secretary comes in there, they think by changing policies that even are working is showing that they are working. So I want to understand what your take is on that, whether you will continue with the good policies that are working. And my second question is the whole issue of the new university funding model, whether you are aware of it, and what measures will you put in place to ensure that you communicate effectively, especially to the parents and guardians, on what the new university funding model is all about?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Naisula. The question of changing existing policies in an institution that are good is, I think, something that needs to be considered. I do not believe that as a CS, if you went to the institution and you found that there are policies that are working, you need to change them. What you need to change is what is not working. So, because government is one, and you operate on continuity, it's a perpetual succession, so to speak. So if you find that a particular policy is working well, you do not need to change it. What you need to do is change that which is not working. On your second question on effective communication, it is true that there is a challenge with effective communication because some of the policies are complicated. So when they are not unbundled sufficiently for the public to understand them, it brings a bit of a challenge. I think what is not in doubt is that the university funding that you refer to, without a doubt, is a good program. It's a good program because the initial funding that existed was a funding that was going to universities as a block. And in that sense, each and every student was getting it without relating what they are receiving to their needs. The new funding model is a model that is based on the need of the student and the costs of the program. So that if, for example, you are able to fund your education, then based on the fact that you are able to, you should not be financed by government. And in that sense, the little funds that are available go to meet the needs of those who are most vulnerable. So in a manner of speaking, if this unbundling was done properly, then the public would understand what it is. Because the new funding model is a funding model based on the MTI, where parents are assessed using the means testing instrument so that we can determine what level are you, because there is a strata of 5 stages or 5 groups of students that get this funding. So the people or the students who are most vulnerable get the highest amount. Those ones who are able to fund or to fund their service, to fund their education, get the equivalent of what they are able to. For example, the most vulnerable students get 95% funding, and the ones that are able to.
Skip. Yes, Jeanette.
I want to ask the nominee that, you know, Okili, I hope you know what you're getting into. Because this Ministry of Education is not a joke. This is something very big all over the country with a lot of problems. And as you are aware, there was a new curriculum that was introduced midway, sometimes back in the former regime when they were almost leaving. And that program has given children and parents a lot of problem. People don't know whether you are in primary school or secondary school or university. You just continue going to school until you find yourself in university. Because all classes, there's a mix-up. Parents don't understand it, children don't understand. So the question I wanted to ask you is, what do you think is the intention of the competency-based curriculum? What do you think it is supposed to achieve in your own view? If you have done research or if you have thought over it, as now the man who's to become the minister, if you are approved by the House. And from your own analysis, just tell us 3 major issues that bedeal the education sector and how you intend to handle them. The second one, before I conclude, there is this new funding model that has been brought of the universities. And it's supposed to, as it has been put, it's supposed to help the needy and everyone, and the people who are in need of fees and such kind of things. But as it is today, it looks like it's not working, and it has refused to work. And it has stopped the transition from secondary to university. Many families that are poor, who are depending on help and other models, are now suffering. Their children cannot go to school. What are your thoughts on that kind of modeling? Because as far as I am concerned, that model was borrowed from developed countries and fixed here when we have not achieved that level of model. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Jeanette. Now, the question that you ask on the 3 main problems that are bedeviling the education sector is a very important question. And in my view...
First, I ask you whether you know what you're getting into.
I'm coming into it. I'm coming into it, and that's why I've started with that one. Because when I thought about it, I realized that the main problem of the education sector is funding. Each and every problem that you can identify in the education sector, its root is funding. Funding in the sense that there is not sufficient money to cover all the programs and all the students in the country. So then I asked myself, just like you've asked me, do I know what I'm getting into? Is this something that I need to do to get in there? And I said, somebody has to do this job. So if you find that I'm suitable to take this position, my thoughts are the only way to solve the problem bedeviling the whole sector is to find a way of raising enough funds to ensure that the provisions of the Constitution with respect to education are covered. When I thought about it, I realized that there has not been a clear audit to find out, for instance, how many students do we have who need resources? How many funds do we have that cover these students? How many organizations are giving various assistance to these children, how many people are contributing every day towards the school fees of these children in the country? In other words, how much money is the whole country spending on education? So that we can come up to a decision on how that money can be harnessed in order to service the education sector and ensure that all the children in the country are actually get free education as stipulated in the Constitution. So I said I would take up the challenge and work with all the stakeholders to find a solution to the funding problem. The second problem that I realized needs to be tackled is there are a lot of good policies and good laws in the education sector. But I realized that perhaps we are not adhering to those particular policies. What do I mean? I mean there is nothing in the education sector that is not provided for, but people are not obeying, or they are not faithful to those policies. So we have a problem of implementation of those policies, hence the need to find a way of ensuring that implementation is up to date. The question of the new curriculum-based, the competency-based curriculum that came about, it actually started in 2012. The 844 system came to replace the 844 system, which was basically exam-based. Exam-based in the sense that you have children doing exams. When they don't pass, the ones who pass go to university or to colleges. The ones who don't pass lose their way in the middle. So it became necessary to come up with a competency-based curriculum that recognizes the competencies and the talents of the other children who may not be as good as in the exams. That is why it is a program that will help, that carries every child along. So it is a good program, but it has not been understood fully by all the parties and all the stakeholders. So one of the things that needs to be done is to unbundle the various elements of that particular CBC and have that information passed on to the public so that they can understand. So there needs to be a lot of sensitization in that area because we are now in that program.
Yes, Nelson, has he finished your questions?
The new education funding model, I'd referred to it earlier. It started last year. It is only 1 year into operation. We are doing the second year now. It has some teething problems. And of course, one of the challenges that it has is the means testing instrument is not wide enough to capture everybody and to be able to identify everybody's level of income in order to know the children from those homes what level of funding should they get from the university. So it is working, and it's work in progress.
Nelson, Posing.
Thank you, Speaker. And my question, Speaker, this is the most interesting candidate before us on this committee. And this is the reason why I'm saying, Speaker, I've heard him very clearly, and for the whole of his life. Now it's remaining with 3 years for him to attain retirement age. Only 3 years. He has never worked in public service at all. Anywhere, he's not worked in public service. He's not been motivated or what? And in getting the suitability speaker and following what Honorable Julius said.
He's currently the chairman of Kenyan.
Just the other day, Speaker. That's something. Just the other day. In terms of suitability, Honorable Speaker, in accordance with Section 7, which I want the candidate to be able to explain to this committee and maybe to convince me, what motivation has he in public service now, 3 years to his retire, while he was not motivated for the rest of his life, when he was very, very useful. Remember, Honorable Speaker, I'm not saying that he's not useful any longer. But to attain retirement age is only 3 years. Was that a headhunting or was that a reward? I want Mr. Miko to explain to this committee and the people of Kenya. This is not a joke ministry, as Honorable Julius said. I don't know what to call. And you are coming in during a time when there is complications on CBC, funding, teachers, and so on. And you have never worked in public service. So my question is, what motivates you now at your retirement age to work in public service, Honorable Migos, for us to approve you? What is it? Convince me.
Let's take the next. Picaria.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe my question to the nominee is, basic education faces so many challenges, one of which is capitation and the addition of fee charged by schools. Secondly, there are those issues that arise because of the school feeding program. How do you plan to address these challenges to ensure timely disbursement of capitation funds and compliance with the Act provisions to eliminate additional fees, thereby ensuring accessible and inclusive education for all Kenyan children? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me start with Honorable Gikaria's question on the basic education issue of capitation. The problem of capitation, or the issue of capitation, is a problem that is of a national nature. It is an issue that arises from the fact that we do not have enough resources in the country. In fact, in the capitation model, the government was supposed to do 80% of capitation to the schools. But at no time has it ever been able to give that figure either on time or in total. So there is a challenge in the money coming to the schools for them to be able to undertake their programs on time. So one of the things that may be brought to bear so that that problem is resolved would be agreeing with Treasury through Parliament that the sums of the budget of the ministry be ring-fenced, because it's a sensitive ministry, so that it gets released on time and released in totality. That is one of the ways that we can resolve the weakness in that particular area of capitation. There are programs and there are policies in place that do not allow the teachers in schools to raise or to give extra fees or levies from the parents. But there are some principals or some teachers or some schools that flout this particular requirement or this particular regulation. So therefore, what we would do is to ensure that we have a strict implementation of those policies by ensuring that we have a watertight disciplinary mechanism for those who actually flout those particular regulations and policies. On the school feeding program, it is a program that was rolled out by government to cover the ASAL counties where there are difficulties of getting food, and also the informal settlements in some towns. And it is currently covering 26 counties. We have a coverage of about 2.6 million children. And it is a program that has to be continued because it helps the students to be retained in school, and it helps them to come, and continue being in school. So what needs to be done is to come up with programs and policies that allow intergovernment agencies, for example, Kenya Meat Commission or the Cereals Board, so that we can utilize the amounts of money we have to be able to reach more children. It's a program that the government wants to continue, and it's a program that if I was nominated, I would continue to pursue. On the question of retirement age, I am not yet on that.
It's irrelevant. There's no age limit for a minister.
There's no age limit.
Mary?
Thank you, Chairman. I want to pick up from where...
Honorable Speaker. That question of age was building my question. And I was asking, what is his motivation in joining public service?
Yeah, let me answer about motivation, but not age.
Yes.
But nobody
There's
asked
no
about...
age limit provided in
Exactly,
any law
Honorable Speaker, but I'm also aware.
on being a minister.
That is true, Honorable Speaker, and I don't know whether you got my...
You say he has never worked in public service.
So I was
What
now,
is motivating him at this age to accept to be appointed?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for that question. Let me just say that the job that I've been doing as an advocate and working in this country, I have also represented public institutions, so that it can't be argued that because I was in private practice, I have not had any motivation to work for the public. I've also done pro bono work for a lot of public institutions. As I indicated earlier, I've also doubled up in politics, running for parliament, and it's because I wanted to be or to work in the public sector and to assist a lot of the things that I see happening. So it's not true that I have no motivation to work in the public sector. And as I said, I'm currently the chairman of Kengen. We have done a lot of public programs. We've been able to resolve a lot of the issues that were there pending, ensuring that for the last 1 year, our plants have been 95% available, meaning we've been able to produce electricity at that level without it going below 90%, meaning I've been actually doing some work for the public.
Mary?
My question to the nominee is on free and compulsory basic education. The Act provides clearly that every child, up to 11, should have free compulsory basic education. And Section 28(2) mandates the Cabinet Secretary, in consultation with the National Education Board, to ensure the establishment of all learning institutions, be it the primary, the secondary, special needs, name them. But despite all these provisions, the Kenyan parent is still waiting to see this provision coming into fruition. I want to ask the nominee, what are you going to do? Because today, even the free JSS, today parents are being charged more money than even the Form 1s. All communication circulars from the ministry have been disregarded. What are you going to do? And we're receiving concerns from Kenyans telling us how we are splashing money at all levels by various institutions, NGCDF, county government, I don't know, there's presidential bursary. There are so many bursaries. What are your thoughts towards probably seeing how those funds are harnessed to ensure that we provide free, compulsory basic education to Kenyans? Thank you.
Thank you. Daud?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the nominee has talked about CBC. If he is confirmed, grade 9 is just round the corner. And he is aware, he has said the funds are not there, they are not adequate. So what would be his position when we get to January next year? Where will the grade 9s be? Will they be in senior secondary, or will they still be in junior secondary where there are no classes? Because there are no JSS teachers, there are no interns for that matter. Secondly, there is a problem of all schools which retain exam slips, which there have been many circulars from all the ministers who have been there, that they should not be retained. What is your thought on that? And the last one is special needs schools. They have been ignored completely by the Ministry of Education. If you are confirmed, what are you going to do about the special needs schools?
Deal with those two.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'll start with the question on the parents being charged a lot of money by various institutions beyond what is indicated in the various circulars from the ministry. Honorable Speaker, the problem, as I understand it, is a problem that arises out of the Constitution with the formation of the the independent constitutional body called TSC. In the Constitution, TSC is in charge of all the teachers, and it handles including the discipline of the teachers. Now, what then happens is the Ministry of Education is in charge of releasing funds to schools, and when those funds are not used properly, or when the teachers do not follow the circulars, the Ministry of Education doesn't have power to discipline those teachers. They have to go through, they have to prepare a report, go through TSC to give that punishment. So what has happened because of the reforms that are taking place, there are consultations where we are supposed to work together, and what has come up is to agree with TSC so that with respect to principals, the Ministry of Education becomes an agent of TSC with respect to handling those aspects, especially where they do not follow the circulars from the ministry. So there are regulations that are being discussed as we speak, and once it is agreed, that then would be a problem of the past, because once an audit is done and it is found that a teacher has not done what he was supposed to do, then it is possible for the ministry to take action against that teacher directly without going through TSC. Then the question from Honorable Dawood, there were three. I will deal with the issue of retention of certificates, which has been a problem that has been there throughout, I think, the educational lifespan of Kenya. As I understand it, the schools are only agents of the National Examination Council with respect to certificates, so they are not supposed to retain the certificates. But there is a problem, and the problem is the retention of the certificates is because of non-clearance of fees, for example. So there is need to balance the question of the school needing its fees and the student requiring to have its certificate. So it is something that if you found that I'm fit to take up this position, would have to look into it, find out how far those discussions are, because they've been going on, and then we pick it up from there. Because I believe if it is a question of schools having pending bills vis-a-vis the pending school fees that the children have not paid, maybe we can have an audit and know the exact amount and do one block application either to Treasury through Parliament so that this is paid off, and then the children can get their certificate. So there is a possibility that there is a way that can be resolved if we come together and discuss it and see how best that problem can be resolved, because we have to get a balance. The special needs schools, under the capitation model, they do get an amount that is slightly higher than the normal schools. There are also programs and policies that require that, for example, where they need facilities, their allocation is supposed to be slightly higher. But because of lack of resources, it has become difficult to meet all their requirements. What then would be the solution to it is to come up with other programs or other thoughts where maybe we will get partners to partner with them so that we can be able to handle the other extra requirements as an institution. But it is not something that I can here and now make a decision on what will be done, but I know that it is a problem that needs to be handled. Some of the children that have disabilities and other challenges are also in the normal schools, and they're integrated in those schools. But the programs or the provisions that require those schools to have the special, sort of the special needs, like ramps in those schools, some of them have not been done. But again, that's because of the lack of resources. So really, if we are able to get resources, then we'd be able to handle that. On the question that he asked, Honorable Daud asked about the junior school, where it will be domiciled, I think the Presidential Task Force went through public participation, and they made a recommendation that the junior school needs to be domiciled in the current primary schools, so that and the reasons were two, mainly. The first reason was because it is going to be cost effective, because we have an extra 2 classes, that is standard 7 and 8. And then the other one was the issue of cost to the parents, where they felt that if they were to move to secondary school, they'll need to pay more for those uniforms and such other things. There was also the question of age, because it was felt that these children are much younger, and if they went to join their older brothers in high school, there might be a challenge there. So there is a decision that has already been reached that these schools, these children, this year 9 will be domiciled in.
There's a point of order here from the Deputy Speaker.
Yes. No, I'm saying when you say the age, you say it very lightly, because the age is a 10-year-old going to be able to be mixed with, children of the other gender and who are 18. There's a likelihood of sexual abuse.
Yes, that is the reason.
Yeah, so make sure that
yes.
that's very passionate about.
It was a well thought out decision, because of those challenges where the older boys would perhaps, I wouldn't know, but they would perhaps end up molesting the younger boys, and that brings other challenges.
Point of order.